So I decided to make my presentation on The Good Place. I decided on it because this, with a few movies, have very much influenced my thoughts on the afterlife, but more importantly, the meaning of my current life. Even though I have talked about it before, I'll be going into more depth and detailed version with this review on the philosophical arcs that take place in the series. Spoilers ahead, so listen at your own risk. This show is a comedy with a very deep concept. It follows the main character, Eleanor, who in the beginning seems to have gone to heaven. Well, actually, the good place. Once arrived, she is paired up with a soulmate, which happens to be Chidi, who in his own life was a moral philosophy professor. In the very first episode, she confesses to her supposed soulmate Chidi that she's not meant to be there in an effort to possibly help her earn her own way into the good place. Eleanor is taught by Chidi how to be a good person. Dealing with insecurities of her own worth is inevitably what really is her own downfall in the series. Throughout the show, age-old philosophy subjects and questions are brought up in what it means to be a good person and eventually what it means to live a good life. These are mainly brought up during Chidi's ethic lessons that span throughout the seasons, but mostly in the first one. When trying to decide if he should teach Eleanor how to be a good person, Chidi is going through the dilemma echoed in a bit of Plato's dialogue on if a person who rejects morality can truly be reasoned with enough to become moral. In response to this dialogue, Chidi cited Aristotle's idea that virtue can be learned, or, taught, just like an instrument can be done through a ton of practice. See, Chidi in the beginning, with his decision to help Eleanor or not, was a choice between Kantian and utilitarianism ethics, where he even draws up a list of ethical pros and cons on his nifty little blackboard that we see throughout the series. See, utilitarianism, which was developed by Jeremy Bentham, a radical philosopher, is all about the greatest good is the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. So in this perspective, Chidi should expose her to stop the chaos that seems to be occurring from her being there when she shouldn't be. However, Kant, who is a philosopher that is heavily relied on in this series, says that the only indisputable good is goodwill. Basically, that an ethical action is derived from goodwill, meaning we all have a duty to act in a good way, to never treat people poorly as a means to an end no matter the outcome, which, in the end, rejects the utilitarian view, making Chidi decide that it would be wrong to abandon Eleanor in her time of need. In Chidi's own words, if all that matters is the sum of the total goodness, then you can justify any number of bad actions. Differences between these two philosophies are exemplified by the trolley problem episode. Variants of it include a train going forward towards 5 people tied on the track, but you can change the direction of it. However, on the other track, one person who is not tied to it would die. What would you do? This problem became the focus of an entire episode and kept with the series even afterwards. With this episode, Michael, the architect of The Good Place, is apparently trying to understand humanity and ethics, which is a lie. He was just trying to mess with Chidi, make him go through terrible scenarios. To do this, he puts Chidi in a very realistic simulation where he makes Chidi the train driver and forces him to decide which group he kills. Michael keeps doing this, which with very differing variations, with different numbers of people, and even to a point with people he knows and people he doesn't. All of this is meant to show how hard moral decisions actually are. It's not just black and white, but morality has multiple layers of gray when it comes to humanity. When this basis of morality is shown, that it is very gray, it's referred to throughout this series. When later on we come across how humans are judged in order to get into the good place or not, the whole point system for the good place can be seen in a new light. People are judged on their own individual subjective decisions, which is quite unsettling that these decisions can be used as like a measurement of their entire life and who had value and who did not. We are shown how flawed this point system is because of how complicated the current world has become, when even buying a simple apple can cause you to lose points because it is being picked by an underpaid, exploited worker and has environmentally harmful pesticides. But how could a normal person know this? And also, what are the other options even in this day and age? With the knowledge of the before taught trolley problem, we are more easily, as an audience, able to understand how all these decisions have morally gray layers that we can never fully comprehend, no matter how hard we try. that we as humans make mistakes, and that as long as we are trying our hardest to be a good person, that is what actually counts. The philosophy of always trying to do the right thing is based in Scanlon's philosophy of what we owe to each other. This is the spine of the entire show, actually. It's not a question of do we owe things to each other, but that this is what we owe each other. We owe each other to act morally in abiding by principles that no one can reasonably reject. When the point system of the universe is overthrown, the main group of characters have to basically build their own new one, which is born from a sense of duty to each other as fellow human beings. That each human's life is valuable because they are human. We owe each other mutual respect.